In 2025, alimony isn't just a monthly payment. It's a minefield that could drain your paycheck for years if you're not careful. Here's the reality. Divorce doesn't just split property. It doesn't just divide the house, the cars, or the savings account. Divorce splits income. And when alimony enters the picture, the money you worked for, your paycheck, your bonuses, your retirement savings can suddenly become her lifeline. Now, on the surface, alimony sounds simple. One person pays the other support for a period of time. But the fine print is where men get trapped, because alimony isn't just about numbers. It's about rules, taxes, and court orders that change from state to state and year to year. And in 2025, the rules have shifted again. Since 2019, alimony has not been tax deductible for the payer. That means if you pay $2,000 a month in alimony, you're paying that out of after-tax dollars. You don't get a deduction anymore. That $2,000 might actually cost you closer to $3,000 of your gross income. Meanwhile, the recipient doesn't report it as income at all. For her, it's free money. For you, it's heavier than it looks. Some states are limiting how long alimony lasts. Others are keeping the door open for indefinite support. Some are pushing for rehabilitative alimony designed to help an ex-spouse get back on their feet. Others are leaving men locked into payments until retirement. It all depends where you live and what you agree to. And here's the scary part. Once you sign that agreement, it becomes law. Your law. Courts will enforce it. If you fall behind, they can garnish your wages, seize tax refunds, even hold you in contempt. Missing payments isn't just stressful, it's dangerous. That's why you have to know the traps before you agree to anything, because the most expensive alimony isn't the one you negotiate. I've seen men walk into courtrooms thinking they were making a fair deal, only to walk out chained to payments they couldn't afford. I've seen settlements that looked clear on paper but were full of vague language that left the door wide open for higher payments later. And I've seen too many men drained not just by alimony itself, but by penalties, taxes, and legal fees when they couldn't keep up. In this video, we're gonna break it all down. The 7 alimony traps that could drain your paycheck in 2025. These aren't random mistakes. These are real pitfalls that men face every single day in family court, from open-ended agreements that never end, to hidden tax hits, to enforcement rules that take your paycheck before you even see it. We're going to expose them all, so stay with me. Because knowing these traps could be the difference between keeping control of your money and watching it disappear month after month, year after year. The first alimony trap that could drain your paycheck in 2025 is assuming alimony is always short term. A lot of men walk into divorce thinking, okay, I'll pay support for a year or two until she gets back on her feet. They imagine it's a temporary burden, something manageable. But here's the truth. Alimony doesn't always end quickly. In some cases, it doesn't end until retirement, or at all. Every state handles alimony differently. Some have started pushing toward limits and rehabilitative support. That means payments designed to help an ex-spouse for a set period, usually while they retrain, finish school, or find work. But not every state has those limits. In some places, judges can still order long-term or even indefinite alimony, especially after long marriages, and once that order is in place, you're locked in until a court says otherwise. That's where the trap comes in. Men assume it's short term, so they don't fight hard for end dates or clear limits. They agree to vague language like until further order of the court or until remarriage. Sounds harmless, right? But those words mean your ex could drag payments out for years. If she never remarries, if she never moves in with someone officially, you're still on the hook. I've seen cases where men in their 50s thought they'd be free by retirement, only to discover their agreement didn't actually end at retirement. They kept paying into their 60s and 70s, eating into Social Security and pensions long after their working years were done. That isn't short-term support. That's a life sentence. The key is clarity. Don't just accept that a judge will probably make it fair. Courts don't always see fairness the way you do. Insist on exact timelines. Push for phrases like support shall end on X date or support shall terminate after X years. If your state has limits, make sure they're written into your agreement, because here's the bottom line. If you assume alimony is short term without putting it in writing, you're giving away control of your future. And once the order is final, there's no easy way out. Short-term alimony is possible, but it doesn't happen by accident. You have to make it happen. And while long-term payments can drain you slowly, the second trap takes an even bigger bite. It's the tax hit most men forget to plan for. Trap number 2, ignoring the tax bite. The second alimony trap that could drain your paycheck in 2025 is ignoring the tax bite. Here's what most men don't realize. Alimony used to be deductible. For decades, if you paid spousal support, you could subtract it from your taxable income. That meant the government shared part of the cost with you, but the law changed. For divorces finalized after December 31st, 2018, that deduction is gone. Your payments are no longer tax deductible, and your ex doesn't pay taxes on what she receives. What does that mean in real life? Let's say you agree to pay $2,000 a month. That's $24,000 a year, right? But because you can't deduct it, that $24,000 comes straight out of your after-tax income. Depending on your tax bracket, you may have to earn $30,000 or more just to cover that $24,000 payment. For her, though, it's tax-free money. Every dollar lands in her pocket. That's the trap. Alimony costs more than it looks on paper. Too many men negotiate a number that feels reasonable without running the math after taxes. They look at their paycheck today, see the gross amount, and assume they can handle it. Then the first tax season comes, and the reality hits like a brick. Suddenly, the money isn't just leaving your wallet, it's gutting your budget. The regret is brutal. I've heard men say, if I'd known the tax hit, I never would have agreed to that number. But once it's signed, it's too late. The IRS doesn't care about your settlement. The court doesn't care about your tax bracket. You pay what the order says, no matter how much it costs after taxes. The solution is simple but critical. Run the numbers before you sign. Work with a tax pro who can show you the true cost of alimony in your specific bracket. If $2,000 a month really costs you $3,000 in gross income, you need to know that before you agree. That knowledge can change your entire negotiation, because alimony isn't just a line on a divorce decree. It's a paycheck drain that feels bigger every year. And if you ignore the tax bite, you'll feel like you're paying double. And if the tax trap sounds painful, the third trap is even sneakier. Temporary alimony orders that quietly turn into permanent obligations. Trap number 3, signing temporary orders without clarity. The third alimony trap that could drain your paycheck in 2025 is signing temporary orders without clarity. Here's how it happens. While the divorce is still in process, the court may set up temporary support. It's meant to cover living expenses until everything is finalized. On paper, it sounds harmless. Short-term help while lawyers fight it out. But here's the danger. What starts as temporary often becomes the baseline for permanent alimony. Judges and mediators look at those numbers and think, if he can pay this amount now, he can pay it later. Suddenly, what you thought was a stopgap becomes the model for your long-term obligation. I've seen men agree to inflated temporary payments just to keep the peace. They think, I'll pay a little more now, then negotiate down later. But when negotiations start, the higher number is used against them. The court says, you've already been paying this amount, why not continue? That temporary mistake can lock you into years of higher payments. Some temporary orders drag on for months, or even years if the divorce gets delayed. Legal battles, backlogs in the court system, and endless filings can stretch a temporary payment far beyond what you expected. By the time it's over, you've paid thousands more than you planned, and the final number is built on that inflated history. The regret comes when men realize they treated temporary support like an afterthought. They signed quickly, thinking it didn't matter, but every dollar counted. Every payment became precedent, and the court remembered. The fix? Treat temporary orders like they're permanent. Don't agree to a number you can't sustain long term. Demand a clear end date or a specific trigger for when temporary support ends. Put it in writing. Temporary support shall expire on date unless replaced by a permanent order. That way, you can't get stuck in limbo. Because here's the truth. Temporary isn't always temporary. And if you're not careful, those short-term payments can set the tone for your financial future. And while temporary orders can trap you quietly, the fourth trap comes later, when your income changes and you discover modifying alimony isn't as simple as you thought. Trap number 4, letting income changes slide. The fourth alimony trap that could drain your paycheck in 2025 is letting income changes slide. If your income goes down, if you retire, or if life changes in a major way, you can ask the court to lower your payments. Sounds fair, right? But here's the trap. It's not automatic. Courts don't just adjust your obligation because your paycheck changed. You have to prove it, and proving it isn't easy. Imagine this. You lose your job. Your income drops overnight. You assume the alimony will drop too, but unless you file for a modification and show real evidence, the payments stay exactly the same. Every month, the order order remains in place, interest and penalties pile up if you fall behind. By the time you get a hearing, you could owe thousands in arrears. It gets even trickier if the court thinks your income drop was voluntary. If you quit, switch careers, or go part-time, the judge may decide you chose to lower your income to avoid alimony. In that case, they can impute income to you. That means they calculate what you could be earning and force you to keep paying as if you still had that job. The regret comes when men wait too long to act. They assume they'll catch up later or that the court will automatically adjust. But by the time they finally file, the debt is already massive and the judge sees them as irresponsible. The fix is to act fast. The second your income changes, file for a modification. Keep records, termination letters, job searches, medical reports, anything that proves the change was real and not your fault. Don't just hope the court will understand. Build your case. Because here's the reality. Alimony doesn't care about your bad luck. If you don't fight to adjust it, the payments keep coming, whether you can afford them or not. And while income changes can crush you if you stay silent, the fifth trap is just as dangerous. Vague settlement language that leaves the door wide open for endless payments. Trap number 5, signing vague settlement language. The fifth alimony trap that could drain your paycheck in 2025 is signing vague settlement language. Here's the setup. In the heat of divorce, both sides want to get it over with. Lawyers draft quick agreements, judges push for settlements, and you're exhausted. So you accept wording like support to be determined later or reasonable support as agreed by the parties. It sounds flexible, maybe even fair, but in reality, vague language is a ticking time bomb. Why? Because vagueness becomes leverage. If the amount isn't locked in, your ex can come back later and argue for more. If the end date isn't written, she can stretch payments far longer than you expected. And if the adjustment rules aren't spelled out, you can get dragged back to court again and again, paying legal fees on top of support. I've seen men trapped by a single phrase. One agreement said alimony would continue until circumstances change. What does that mean? For the payer, he thought it meant until retirement. For the recipient, she argued it meant as long as I want. Guess who the court sided with? The one pushing for more payments. Because vague language almost always gets interpreted in the recipient's favor. The regret is deep. Men think they protected themselves by leaving it open to interpretation, but what they really did was give up control. Every gray area becomes an argument, and arguments cost money. The fix is sharp, precise writing. Never settle for vague promises. Insist on exact amounts, exact start and end dates, and exact triggers for modification or termination. If your state uses formulas or caps, demand they be written into the agreement. If there's supposed to be an end date after, say, 5 years, put support shall terminate on date in black and white. Because here's the truth. Vague language doesn't protect you. It protects her. And the longer it stays vague, the longer you'll be paying. And while vague wording is a trap on paper, the sixth trap is worse. It hides in your future. It's the retirement and bonus money you didn't plan for that still gets pulled into alimony. Trap number 6, forgetting about retirement and benefits. The sixth alimony trap that could drain your paycheck in 2025 is forgetting about retirement and benefits. Most men think alimony ends once they stop working. They picture retiring at 65, collecting Social Security, and being done with support. But here's the ugly truth. Unless your agreement says otherwise, alimony can follow you straight into retirement. Courts don't always care that your paycheck stopped. If you're drawing from pensions, Social Security, or retirement accounts, the court may treat that as income and order you to keep paying. Imagine this. You worked for 40 years, saving every dime for your future. Now, instead of enjoying it, part of that money goes to your ex every month. Even worse, if you took a lump sum from a pension or cashed out retirement accounts, she could argue for a bigger share because your income suddenly increased. The very money you thought was protected becomes a fresh excuse to drain your wallet. It's not just retirement. Bonuses, commissions, stock options, and business sales can all get pulled into alimony calculations if your agreement doesn't exclude them. Picture landing a one-time bonus at work. Instead of celebrating, you get dragged back to court because she argues your income went up. The regret here is brutal. Men who worked decades for retirement suddenly find themselves paying support from the very accounts meant to carry them through old age. Or they cash out an investment only to see it siphoned away by an ex who never lifted a finger for it. The fix? Plan for retirement and benefits at the settlement stage. Put language in writing. Alimony shall terminate upon retirement at age X, or alimony shall not include bonuses, commissions, or one-time distributions. The more specific you are, the safer you are. Don't assume retirement ends your obligation. Make sure the paperwork says it does. Because without that clarity, your golden years can turn into another paycheck draining nightmare. And while retirement traps you in the future, the seventh alimony trap hits hardest in the present, when you miss a payment and discover just how brutal enforcement can be. Trap number 7, not planning for enforcement and penalties. The seventh alimony trap that could drain your paycheck in 2025 is not planning for enforcement and penalties. Most men think of alimony as a monthly payment. Write the check, drop it in the mail, and move on. But what happens if you miss one? What if you're late? What if you can't pay at all? That's where enforcement comes in, and this is where the system turns brutal. Courts treat alimony orders like law. If you fall behind, even by accident, missed payments turn into arrears. And arrears don't just disappear. They follow you until they're paid, sometimes with penalties that double the original amount, and that's just the beginning. Judges have the power to garnish your wages before you even see your paycheck. They can intercept your tax refunds, they can freeze your bank accounts. In extreme cases, they can even hold you in contempt of court, which means fines or jail time for falling behind. Imagine being hauled into court not because you committed a crime, but because you couldn't keep up with payments you never should have agreed to in the first place. I've seen men who thought they could catch up later, crushed by enforcement. The fix is simple, but essential. Negotiate enforcement terms up front. Build in a short grace period before penalties kick in. Ask for mediation or review before contempt proceedings. Keep an emergency savings buffer so one bad month doesn't spiral into a legal disaster. And above all, don't agree to payments you know you can't sustain long term. Because alimony isn't just about what you owe, it's about what happens if you don't pay. And in 2025, courts are faster and harsher than ever at draining your paycheck the second you slip. And now you've seen them all. The 7 alimony traps that could crush your income if you're not careful. Now you've seen them. The 7 alimony traps that could drain your paycheck in 2025. Men fall into these traps every day. They assume alimony will be short term. They ignore the tax bite and watch thousands more vanish than they planned. They agree to inflated temporary payments that later become permanent. They lose jobs but don't act fast enough, and the debt snowballs. They sign vague settlements that leave every door open for more. They forget about retirement, bonuses, and benefits, only to see their future income pulled into the fight. And when they fall behind, the enforcement machine kicks in, garnishing wages, freezing accounts, and dragging them back to court. 7 traps. 7 regrets that can turn a paycheck into a prison. The hard truth is this: divorce isn't just about splitting property, it's about splitting power. And if you give up control of the fine print, you give up control of your future. Courts don't care what you meant. They don't care what you thought was fair. They care about what's in writing. And once you sign, those words become law. But here's the good news: every one of these traps can be avoided. You can demand end dates on alimony. You can run the numbers after taxes so you see the true cost. You can cap temporary payments and lock in limits. You can file for modifications quickly when income changes. You can insist on precise settlement language that leaves nothing open to interpretation. You can protect your retirement and future income by carving them out now. And you can negotiate enforcement terms that give you breathing room before the hammer drops. It comes down to one choice. Do you want to walk into divorce hoping it will be fair, or walk in prepared to protect yourself? Because in 2025, the rules are clear. The man who doesn't plan is the man who pays. Alimony doesn't have to destroy you, but if you don't treat it like the financial weapon it is, you could spend years writing checks you can't afford, watching your hard-earned money flow out of your hands month after month. So here's the final line I want you to remember. The paycheck you protect today is the freedom you'll have tomorrow. Don't give it away. Don't assume the court will save you. And don't ever sign an agreement until you know every word, every number, and every consequence. Because once the ink is dry, the trap is set. And the only way to win is to never step into it.